There's a big hoo-ha about SERS in Ang Mo Kio, especially when the older residents are saying that they would have to fork out 100K just to pay for the SERS, the replacement flat that's equal to the size of the current flat. Do you think it's fair? Because look, these people didn't want to move and they're actually asked to move and they have to pay to move. I really don't get it.
I think it's quite interesting because the articles that were out there, is it a bonus or is it a curse, to get selected for SERS? I mean, but SERS has been around for the longest time. So all along, I really thought it was fine, that you can get a replacement flat 1-for-1, but apparently it's not the case.
But SERS was introduced in 1995 in order for the government to move you out of the old estate and rebuild it to renew the look, whichever, because if it's falling apart, it's falling apart. And residents are given a choice of whether you want to take the replacement flat or use the SERS money to buy a new flat. So
I think it's timely, that this was brought up, because I always had the impression that you it's 1-for-1, but actually it's not a replacement. There's added costs, like your stamp duties, your repayments, your top up, your minimum requirements you have to put back in. And now we know that the value of the new place pegged at market rate is like 100,000 more. So if I were, like what we discussed, 60, 70-year-old, having to give up my flat and then go through all the hassle, I'd rather stay.
I wouldn't want to move, but then again, HDB estates needs to look nice. Aesthetically, it must look pretty enough. It must look up to standard, up to par with a world-class housing estate or world-class standard of living. But if this is considered a public housing, why is it so expensive?
Definitely, yeah. We need to revisit this public housing. And I think a few years back, everybody thought we are going through this asset enhancement phase. Where everybody, we want you to have an asset, own a roof, make money, let it appreciate.
Yeah.
And then we have HDBs now in $1 million.
No, and only to realize of late. I mean, last time we don't even think about it. It's like you paid so much only to stay there for 99 years.
Yes.
It's like I paid $1 million for a HDB flat and I can only stay there for 99 years. But because it's in a mature estate, I paid for another 50 years for $1 million. At the end of the day, we are all renting or having a lease from the government. How is that public housing?
Correct. If you read the fine print, and I read it, you don't own the HDB flat at all. And at any point of time, you can actually choose to return it to HDB if you don't sell it on the open market.
How is this considered the government's
HDB can
gift?
actually take it back.
Yeah, if you don't fulfill the criteria, if you are not within the so-called, you don't have the standard to live in public housing. And at one point we heard about this is the government's gift to the people of Singapore. How is this a gift when it is on loan? A very expensive lease, right? Now, when you sell the house, I mean, we were given the grant of using CPF to buy a house. So you loan from CPF to pay. But then again, upon selling, you need to return back to the CPF board the money that you use, plus the accrued interest. This is on top of the HDB loan, plus the interest. And now, if I were to be a 70-year-old, I also need to fulfill my retirement sum, my minimum retirement sum. If you minus that all up, I don't think I can buy or I can afford another 4-room or 5-room flat. I might as well stay. Right? So, I thought when we talk about public housing, we should have kinder policies, a more transparent. If you buy, it's A, B, C, D. If you sell, it's A, B, C, D. This is where your money goes. For the longest time, we were not fully aware of it, how the process is being done. Since the beginning of time, if you ask majority of our friends, I'm not talking about Singaporeans as a whole, our friends are like, really? Is it true? You have to do it? They're not very certain. At least some of the people that I know.
Now let me read this that I read on the web. It says that SERS was introduced in 1995 and it's part of the government effort to renew older estates, and the government takes back the old flats. The residents are given a package which includes compensation based on market value. Okay? Rehousing benefits. What are those? It was not explained. And HDB actually pays 10K for removal allowance. So what does that even mean? If you have to pay HDB back for its loan, and on top of that, the interest. So this $10,000, is it going back to HDB? So that was what I've read. It could be something from the old book, but I'm not too sure because it was reported by one of the mainstream media.
You see, if I sell my house, then I need to go through all these legal processes. I need to pay the conveyancing fees on top of the agent fees if they are involved. But if this is SERS, if you want me to move to a flat of an equivalent size and the price goes higher in a new estate,
But why should I pay? It's not willing buyer, willing seller anymore.
See,
it's forced.
Wait till you hear this. The buyer for the new house must pay for the conveyancing fees. Why do they have to do it? You ask me to move, you settle this administrative cost lah.
I think what you said earlier was spot on. We need kinder policies.
Yeah.
I mean, Singapore is run like a business. You know, yes, I mean, it has to a certain extent. But we don't get welfare, we don't get handouts, we don't get subsidized, I think fuel, whatever. I mean, no, there's some countries where there's a welfare state.
Dubai.
Correct. Or income tax rate. So, as Singaporeans, what benefits do we get beyond the current ones? And a lot of the current policies is based on your rate card, where you live. I mean, there are different kinds of policy, but I think a kinder approach, like what you said, it's a must. I mean, SERS is a must. We upgrade, we tear down, we rejuvenate, but with technology, I think we build more flats. You know, we maximize the location. So can't we give back the same houses and yet still have additional houses that HDB can sell to new people to rejuvenate the location, and they can make money out of that? You know, rather than a blanket where everybody has to pay the same thing. I mean, it's a little bit more thought process from the policy developers, but no one is doing that.
So you see, when they choose SERS, a flat for SERS, right, they will identify a flat where at least they can build up to 40 stories in prospect potential. Right now, the current flat in the older estates in central Singapore, they are 13 stories, and they are well spread, you know. But let's say you build the new set of flats, right? They are all clustered very close together, and it's so high up. You have more people living in the same area, in a more condensed or dense area. You definitely make more money. Why can't you give that back to the people who can't afford to pay for the same place that they own? Whatever that I earned when I was younger, I could not have the same energy and throughput or output for me to pay for a new set of flats. This is my retirement home. If I'm forced out of here, I need of the same equivalent. See, people in the older mature estates, they have a different culture. compared to the ones in the new housing estates. They talk to the neighbors, they are more friendly, they are more connected. If you look into how HDB are being designed in the olden times, right? It's like one straight corridor where you want to go to your house, you have to say hi to your neighbors, just like in the kampong, right? But as we grow more educated, we clustered up lift A, lift B, lift C. So you do know your neighbors. But now we are designed in such a way that you don't see your neighbors. It's hard to see your neighbors. So they might have, this is the cultural issue where I'm not going to live like this. So they are hesitant to live in a new environment. But we need to see all that. And on top of that, they can't pay because they don't have the energy to work for the next 10, 15 years. It's retirement season for some of them.
Majority, given that SERS is very targeted.
Older housing estates, you don't have a newlywed living there. One out of 10 in terms of ratio, you don't have much. So they need to approach this correctly.
Yeah. I'm surprised that we're only hearing about it now. SERS has been ongoing for so long.
The last batch of SERS before this Ang Mo Kio one was in MacPherson, and it was in, if I'm not mistaken, is 2018, and seemed to be okay. Nobody complained, and I guess it's now that people are more vocal. Then they realize that, oh damn, do I have to fork out another $100,000 to get the same size flat?
Maybe it has been around for the longest time, but people do not have the free avenue to complain like the internet or the social media. I think during the COVID times, everybody can just talk whatever they like over social media. There's no regulation over that side, right? And I think awareness level becomes higher. People start to talk, they know where to connect and do the calculations. Everything is laid down on the table. You cannot go wrong when you go through all the calculations. It has to be of a certain standard. Since the inception of HDB until now, since the inception of the use of CPF, they could not change. It's just that we are not fully equipped to understand the complex mathematical equation of it.
No, I mean when you listed out, there's not much money left. If someone who has paid off their loan, perhaps they will have some money left. But if someone who is still paying off their loan, given the low income, the older generation,
unless I earn $1 million a year, I don't think I would be able to finish up the loan until I'm 70 or 75, until I'm done for. Which means I still pay slowly, progressively. I work, then go CF money card and pay. It doesn't hurt so much. But do you realize that all our lives we are all pegged with loans?
Yep.
Right, especially the housing one. So unless you earn so much, like some people I know in Singapore, most of us, we are struggling day to day lah.
So I think it's interesting that for the longest time the government has been saying is asset enhancement, value enhancement. But I think Finance Minister Lawrence Wong came out and said, hey, no, it comes to a point in time where, hey, there's zero value, because of the lease ends. So shouldn't the policies now change? Public housing, we need to redefine what is public housing. I mean, I think there are two kinds of public housing. You have your HDB and then you have your rental flats. And what's the difference?
There's no difference.
Yeah, there's no difference. So the key thing now is, can we relook? Can we really look at it and say, we can't say overnight, okay, everyone at Toa Payoh, everyone at Ang Mo Kio, your flat is of no value anymore. We can't do that. But sooner rather than later, we will come to that bridge, where the value will disappear and stuff. What's going to happen? We see condos where going to en bloc, and then what happens? 1-2 years they say, I'm not going to waste money on touching up, grass is not cut. So what's going to happen? So if this SERS is a way to rejuvenate before the end of the lease, it has to be redefined. And I think every town will go through this SERS process. So let's start by, hey, yeah, we take back your property, but from that moment on, you keep the money, it becomes a public housing. Use SERS, I think I'm suggesting use SERS as a vehicle to do this transformation. Because there's no other vehicle. There's no way I can say, hey, I take back your house, and then it's worthless. But see, now I'm paying you, I take back your house, but moving forward, pay by rent or something like that. We pack the costing. I think that's the only way, because
I
the
think
$1 million flat is going to just evaporate.
I think, Kevin, you need to go few steps back. Let's define public housing. Do you even own the title deed at the end of the day? Do you even own a house in public housing?
I don't think you should, because it's public housing.
I still pay tax.
You pay property tax, you pay for the services, you pay for everything. Then what are the services that you provide for when it is a leasehold?
Yep.
Shouldn't the landlord be responsible for certain things? Because my roof is someone's floor, my floor is someone's ceiling, right? There are rules and regulations inside those flats, but at the end of the day, no matter how much I do my house, it doesn't belong to me anymore. Public housing is meant for those people who has built Singapore or who's going to support Singapore for the longest time. We don't even own a title deed. We don't even own a place.
You were also talking about leaseholds.
Yeah.
That if you're renting a place and if it's leaking, don't you think that the landlord should be the one who comes in and repairs and pays for the repair? It's not that. It's just that if there is a leak, that means upstairs did not do the waterproofing properly. And that's why your ceiling's leaking. And when HDB comes in, HDB pays a certain amount. Upstairs and downstairs residents have to pay a certain amount.
Yalah, you drill those holes, I pay for it lah.
Yeah. Then in my thoughts are, if you are
A landlord
and the flats don't belong to the residents, don't you think that you should pay for the repairs?
So we are just curious lah. How did these policies come about?
Yeah, and I think this is where this discussion is important. I think you see certain things, you feel certain things, and you experience the renovation issues.
Yes.
But I think a lot of Singaporeans don't have the avenue, and to talk about it and to air it. I mean, I've always looked at HDB as we've been building for how many years?
They are supposedly our savior.
Correct.
For at least a roof over our head.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what I notice is, even up to now, there is defects. There is tiles popping up, But doesn't HDB have certain standards, requirement, or have they already settled on what the best use of what kind of material will last and don't last? But yet every project seems to be a new project, and every project will have water issues, pipe breaking, pipe bursting.
Only now, you don't have HDB issues then. When we have more space in between those flats, we have more breathable space. Now everything is so condensed up, so dense. Every cluster is so dense up, and things are not in the right order. So how did that happen? Did the quality just went bad? At one point of our lives, we were so afraid that we will become Hong Kong, living in small space with such an expensive cost. But aren't we not all moving towards that
Hong
direction?
Kong, yes.
Yeah. That's sad, isn't it?
I mean, don't think we will reach Hong Kong. I hope we don't reach Hong Kong.
Let's pray that we won't lah.
But I think again we need to relook lah. I mean, I've gone to the newer housing estates, and it's so close. It's so packed. There's so many people living. I mean, yes, they beautify with gardens. I mean, it's livable. It's nice.
It's true.
But it's very, very compact. So I don't know.
If you look at a 3-room in Ang Mo Kio older estate and 3-room in Toa Payoh, I would more than happy to run around in Ang Mo Kio 3-room flat. There's space.
Oh, you're talking about the new Toa Payoh.
The new Toa Payoh.
Yeah, the 5-room is the size of the old 4-room.
or
Yeah.
even smaller.
Yeah,
Where did the space go to? I mean,
aircon ledge.
if you look into the bigger picture, do we really need a lot of people in this small city that we need to build compact places and let us live in matchbox areas? Why can't we prosper and have all these talents on a lease? Then the core of Singaporeans remain taken care of, just like the residents of Dubai, just like some of the first world-class citizens anywhere else, right? The main core of the residents are taken care of, like that.
I think again, I mean, you talked about the right policies, human centric, and I think the core, you got it there in terms of the Singaporeans.
Singapore is really a place to make money for those who have the opportunity to do it, right? But if you look at the economic disaster that happened, that hits Dubai, what happened? Everybody evaporated from there. There are cases of people leaving. You have cars being parked at the airport just gone like that. They leave in terms of crisis, but the core of the people in UAE remained there and stayed and lived on. For most of us, of all races across the nation, across all communities, most of us will stay here because we believe this is home. And the higher end invitees, do you think they will stay here if there are crises? If the goodies are all gone, would people still stay and call this a home?
It's always been the business model of the Singapore Inc. If I give you for free, you will not take care of it. No,
That's unfair, lah. Not everybody is irresponsible.
Correct. So it's having to rethink, lah. I think that's where our housing policy has to come in. Housing, transport plays a big part of our day-to-day expenses. I mean, there are a lot of Singaporeans struggling. If you can take away housing, the cost, if you can take away transport costs or reduce both, I think it will work. We will bring down the cost of living in Singapore. Of course, have clear standards. We cannot have a different classes of Singaporeans. It will cause a whole societal turmoil. But there must be a way to do it. And I think we are happy to sit down. We're happy to work with HDB or any policy makers to really talk about it. But we need to talk. But I don't think they realize it yet. Or maybe after this last 1-2 weeks where it's all in the papers that, hey, we need to review SERS. But the core Singaporeans, the policies, do we need to pay back everything? Can it be one for one? You can still make money. And looking out for Singaporeans. I mean, the government has started to look out for Singaporeans. You have your Mendaki, the Merdeka package, Pioneer package. So housing, medical, it's starting to give back. It's about time. But can we expand that to the core Singaporeans? And I think government has shown that things can be done if they have the political will and the financial calculations. Recently, I was quite shocked when I noticed that central kitchens in Singapore, their electricity costs can be pegged. Even though the price goes up, they don't have to pay. I read it somewhere. So if we can control economic forces and say, nope, petrol price might go up, house rental might go up, but you only pay this amount. You pay this amount and you will get certain benefits until maybe you earn a little bit more or you feel that, hey, you want to opt out. So it's a very fine line. Like I said, you cannot have two classes of Singaporeans. But young families, needy families, we need
and the elderly.
And the elderly, we need a lift. We need a helping hand. And Singaporeans, being Asians also, we're not going to say, please give me, please help me. We have pride, we don't want. So there's no one going to say, please tolong, give me something. I think it's owners, like how we created the Pioneer package, say, no need. You are pioneers, you are Singaporeans, we give this to you. And I think society in Singapore would change very drastically.
We don't question anything last time because one, we might not be well informed, we are not well read. There was no Google was not famous, the internet was not famous, social media was not famous, but things are different now. You learn every day something new, whether good or bad. Then you start to question, right? Hey, yeah, that's similar to mine. So it's surfacing now because we are more informed. We want to understand now. And whatever policies that you have post 1965, it should be revised for 2022, 2024 and beyond, because people are educated differently. People perceive things differently. Singapore passport goes around the world. We see how things are being done. Then we make that comparison.
Yeah, so I don't think we Singaporeans are being difficult lah.
No, we just want to
be
know.
fair. Yeah, we just want to know. And in every society, transparency is important lah, because it will take away ambiguity, misinformation, and we need that transparency. Like, I never knew the fees I have got to pay back so much.
You need to pay the fees and the accrued interest for both ends.
The banks as
well as
CPF.
CPF. Then when you return the money to CPF, if you are 55, you need to have the minimum requirement sum. You need to fill that up first. Then you can decide what house you want to buy. So if you are not on the higher end of the economic spectrum in terms of your salary scale than when you were younger, of course you would not have enough. You would go, oh no. So why must I sell my house? Why should I change? They say if it's not broken, why change?
You might just end up only able to afford a tent at Changi Beach.
No, I like this place, and I think I want to continue serving myself as a Singaporean to the country. In spite and despite who the leader might be, I still want to be a Singaporean, but I also want to be in a livable place that doesn't hurt me economically, like that.
So let's hope we can get more discussion on this.
Hopefully, and hopefully they don't wait for the noise to die down and they think, oh, it's not a problem anymore.
Let's hope they will not penalize us for talking and asking, because we are doing it in good faith, not to stir.
Yeah.
So that's my disclaimer.
They will talk. We will help them talk.